Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to a new series. Today we're going to be doing monster families. That's right, monster families. We're going to be talking about monsters and the specific monsters throughout the game that fall into each category. I'm going to be breaking them up into sub archetypes like families, for instance, and we'll be talking about specific variations of those monsters. But the first one we're going to be talking about is one of the first monsters that you'll encounter in the Diablo 2 world, and that is, of course, the Fallen. The Fallen are an odd archetype. They basically will always run away whenever a monster is killed, as you can clearly see. Anytime that any of them dies, they all run. Unless they can't, for some reason. In which case they'll continue attacking. But usually, if one dies, they run away. This actually continues in revives. So if you revive them and something dies, they will also run away. Don't exactly know why the activity continues even when they're revived, but you can see this as a monster dies. Even my revives will run away. Which makes them very poor, very poor revive fodder. Number one, they don't really do good damage. Number two, they attack slowly. Number three, they run away whenever anything dies, which makes them very poor. I mean, as a revive, I guess they're better than nothing. But for the most part, when you're dealing with these, you'll find that they're just not really the greatest in terms of damage output. These also tend to be revived. So they are one of the first monsters that you come across that will actually revive themselves if you actually have a shaman nearby. Now, we'll talk about the shamans later because the shaman's kind of a different category. But if you do come across a shaman, the shaman will, of course, resurrect the fallens. And your goal pretty much always is to kill the fallen first before they have a chance to be resurrected. You can shatter their corpses. This is one way that you could potentially handle this. So one way you can do it is you can shatter them, which will prevent them from being revived. You could also potentially defile their corpse in a manner of ways. There's a couple different options that you could use. You could, of course, use Find Item, Find Potion, Grim Ward, Death Sentry, Corpse Explosion, and all manner of abilities that will remove the corpse from existence, including creating skeletons out of their corpses, which is another interesting way that you can go about it. And they have trapped me. Stupid arm of King Leoric. And one of the things that you can definitely do with revives is, well, you can kill them. And you can kill them multiple times. Now, does killing them multiple times actually get you anything? Well, the answer to that question is no. So, the first time you kill a fallen, you will get experience points. And this character is currently at level 99, so it doesn't really show. But the first time that you kill a fallen, you will get experience points. The second time that you kill a fallen, you will not, which makes killing them multiple times not a good idea. In general, when it comes to the fallen, you want to kill them just once if you can help it, which usually involves trying to find the shaman who is resurrecting them. There is a unique shaman in this particular area. His name is Bishibosh. But as you can see, we have a shaman right here, so I'm going to go ahead and murder all these guys. And as you can see, if I can get my Iron Golem to leave him alone. In fact, we're going to de-summon the Iron Golem. As you can see, he will sit there and he will resurrect all of the fallen. And every single time you kill them past the first death, well, it doesn't really give you anything. And there's no good reason for it. So you generally want to target this guy to obviously get the kills off to make sure that the shamans are not being resurrected. Now, each individual shaman can resurrect the fallen, but there is a shaman that can actually resurrect other shamans. He does exist. His name is Bishibosh, and he's primarily in Cold Plains. You'll find him as you run around. In fact, we'll find him here in a second. Bishibosh has the ability, he's one of the very few in the game that has the ability to resurrect other shamans. And if you do happen to encounter him on a low-level character, sometimes it can be a little bit nasty if you don't realize what's going on, because of course he resurrects the shamans, and then the shamans resurrect the fallen, and as it continues, you will just simply end up with an infinite number. These guys are so fast; they are literally just right behind me the whole time I'm running. It's amazing. All right, so we find Bishibosh, and when you find Bishibosh, what you're going to see is that he actually has the ability to resurrect his teammates, which is unique in the world. Now, this isn't necessarily about Bishibosh, this is about the Fallen, but it is important to note that in this particular case, it can make for a basically nearly invincible pack of Fallen, because not only will he resurrect the other fallen. He will also resurrect the shaman, and the shamans will also resurrect the fallen, in a basically a cyclical loop until you take out Bishibosh. This is Bishibosh right here. He's pretty much always fire immune, and you'll see. I'll go ahead and kill some of the shamans here, and you notice Mr. Shaman comes right back up. So not only is he capable of resurrecting the fallen, he's also capable of resurrecting the other shamans, which is obviously a problem because when the first time you encounter this guy on a very weak character, it can end up in like an almost infinite loop of fallen. Now let's dive into some of the more specific things about the fallen, and we'll start talking about some of the stats. So fallen exist in quite a large number of places. They go by quite a few different names. And basically they are a family that encompasses the entirety of the game. They actually only exist in normal difficulty, Nightmare in Hell Act 1, and then they also appear as guest monsters in Act 5. Let's pull up the Ariat Summit page on the Fallen. It's actually pretty neat. So the Fallen encompasses the Fallen, the Carver, the Devilkin, the Dark Ones, and the Warped Ones. And there is a difference between them because they actually have a special ability, which is what makes them different. The Fallen have a chance to add fire damage to their attacks in Nightmare in Hell difficulty. The Carvers have a chance to deal cold damage in Nightmare in Hell difficulty. The Devilkins have a chance to deal lightning damage in Nightmare in Hell difficulty, and the Dark Ones have a chance to deal poison damage. Now, I do have more exact stats on this. And it seems to be about 20% from what I've been able to find out. So if we pull up the Fallen, this website has more specific detail on their elemental weaknesses and or elemental strengths. So in this particular case, you'll see that the Fallen have a 10% to 20% elemental damage, which goes onto their attacks of fire. The Carvers are cold, which is also 10 to 20. The Devilkins are lightning. The Dark Ones have the poison chance, which is interesting. And then the Warped Ones are back to cold damage again. And these, of course, appear in Act 5 as well. The Devilkins and the basically all of them have about the same resistances across the board. In normal difficulty, they pretty much all have like 0% fire resistance, 0% cold, 0% lightning, 0% poison. Like they generally tend to have 0% to all resistances because they're one of the weakest monsters in the game. And you'll notice that like they just don't even have any physical damage reduction in normal and nightmare difficulty. And in hell difficulty, it's the only difficulty where they actually start to get physical damage reduction. And then you notice that like across the board pretty much they have essentially no resistances. There's some slight variations. So fire resistance for the Warped Ones, which seem to be the strongest variation of the Fallen by far. You'll notice that the Warped Ones actually do have resistances in normal, nightmare, and hell difficulty. So 50% fire in normal, 66% fire in nightmare, and 75% fire in hell. They're actually not immune to fire, which is interesting because all of the other hell variants are in fact immune to fire. They also have the same resistances for cold, the same resistances for lightning, the same resistances for poison, and the same resistances for magic, and the same resistances for physical. So the Warped Ones are by far the strongest versions of the Fallen by leagues. On top of this, they also have the cold resist of 40% for some reason. All of them have cold resist of 40%. So they're always immune to fire and hell. They have a small amount of cold resistance, and basically all the rest of their resistances are 0. They don't really make good revives, and on top of this, they just tend to have very poor stats. I mean, if you look at their stats across the board, with the exception of the warped ones, they just have pretty much garbage attack rating, garbage defense. They're not really meant to be the strongest monsters in the game, and quite honestly, they're not. They also have relatively low TC class for drops as well, which is something else that we can talk about. So their TC class across the board is very low. For instance, in Hell difficulty, they have a highest drop as a Vex. The Carvers can go as high as a low rune. The Dark ones can go as high as a low rune. The Warped ones are the only ones that can go as high as a Zod. And that is only in Hell difficulty, so it's something that you can look forward to. The Warped ones seem to be actually worth killing in terms of like what they can potentially drop, because their TC class is much higher. But all the rest of ones tend to be on the lowest scale. There is several super unique monsters that encompass Fallen, and you can find those on the Fallen list. So first off, we have Colenso the Annihilator, which is not necessarily a super unique monster for the Fallen category. So the interesting thing about the Fallen is that they're always accompanied essentially by a Shaman, and so that even when you have an elite pack of Fallen, you are almost always guaranteed to not get a actual elite Fallen. There's actually only a couple elite Fallens in the entire game, and one of them is Rakanishu, who of course is always at the Karen Stones. He's actually one of the best drop rates for Harlequin Crest Shaco, believe it or not. Colenso the Annihilator is also in the Act 5 guest monster list. He's basically one of the first wave for Bale. Colenso the Annihilator is, of course, a Shaman. He's not a warped one. I mean, he's not a Fallen. But he does resurrect the Fallen, and the ones that come with him do actually count as minions. So it's one of the few places that you'll see some very high-powered Fallen. And I say that with a chuckle because, of course, they're not high-powered. They're still among the weakest monsters in the game. Fun little anecdote, I actually saw somebody die to Colenso the Annihilator one time. I almost died laughing because oh my god, Colenso is, I think, one of the weakest monsters in the game, pretty much by far. Overall, not really great as revives. Very weak monsters that are honestly sometimes not even worth killing, especially since when they resurrect, you can't really tell that they've been resurrected, and once they've been resurrected, well, they don't really give good experience points anymore. And as far as I'm aware, if we go to he freaks me out sometimes the way he like the way he like spazzes out and he's like Braze Comet Carver Shamans are not worth any experience and cannot drop items. They are only worth killing once. So yeah, as far as I'm aware, they're not even capable of dropping items once they have been killed once and then resurrected. So essentially, all of the Carver Shamans are poopy in terms of actually experience points, because most of the time you end up killing them 2, 3, 4 times unless you hyper focus on the Shamans, which I highly recommend when you're dealing with this monster type. This is only the first video in a series of videos for all the monster types in the game. Obviously, we're going to be going over all of them, so I hope you will join me for those. The next monster in the list, I believe, is just the lowly zombie, which is kind of quite an interesting one to talk about. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos. Be sure to hit that like button and the subscribe button if you enjoy the content. It really helps out the channel. And as always, keep watching.